Thank you for listening to the BjjBrick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back to the BjjBrick Podcast. This is episode 250. I'm Tim Sledd, and this is my friend Roli Delgado.
Hey. How you guys doing? This is Joe Thomas. I'm here with Roli and Tim and my good buddy Byron and my good buddy Gary. Episode 250.
That's right. We are really excited for this episode. We just had an amazing weekend and fortunate enough to have both Roli and Tim in the kind of studio. We're all here together. This is really neat.
Even though this is episode 250, this is the first time Joe, Byron, and I have been together on a podcast in the same room ever. And then we have two superstars, Tim and Roli. Like, how can it get any better than that?
Oh man, it's my pleasure to be here.
I can't add any value and it not be rated R, so it's as good as it can get.
Hey, I can tell you, you have added a ton of value this weekend to my game. You know, so you also, Tim. So, you know, the value is going to pay dividends for me for the next couple of years with stuff I learned today, or learned this weekend. We had the BjjBrick Summer Camp this weekend. So, Byron, tell us a little bit about the summer camp.
Yeah, it was really done by Jake Fox. He put this whole thing together, and he's like, it would be cool to do a event and find people who have been on the podcast, bring them in and train. And the list of names is pretty long. 250 episodes. We've had many interviews, and been wanting to meet Tim Sledd for years. And Roli Delgado is kind of a staple to bringing into Wichita. So, two perfect people to come in and teach some of their systems and some of their game to the people here. And we had people coming in from Pennsylvania. We had a guy here from California, and of course the neighboring states. Basically, we had a pretty good turnout. I was happy. I don't know if we had around 35 today, and I don't know if we had about that yesterday as well. A lot of jiu-jitsu this weekend. What was your guys' Tim and Roli? What was your guys' thoughts?
At first, it was great. To be honest, originally I was a little hesitant to commit to it because I knew I was going to be gone for 3 days, and I've been so busy. But I always have a good time here in Wichita, and I really have enjoyed getting to meet everybody. And Jake is a good friend of mine, and I thought, well, I'm going to do it. And I'm so glad that I did. It was just an absolutely awesome weekend for me. It was a good break from the grind that I've been on lately, and I got to be a student and did your lesson today, and then Tim's seminar was amazing and very difficult to follow. Not follow the seminar, but I had to teach after him. It was awesome. So. That was good, I got some good training in. But my takeaway from the weekend is just, I just continue to meet great people in the sport, and it's just this, and I'm, continuing to strengthen my relationships with everybody here in Wichita. And that's just what keeps me in jiu-jitsu. I really love jiu-jitsu, but I have other hobbies outside of it. But the thing about jiu-jitsu that is leaps and bounds above all my other interests is the community. There's just no comparison of all the things that I do. Jiu-jitsu is what brings me a ton of joy and brings me around a bunch of great people, and I continue to just meet more and more great people. It's hard to keep up with everybody. It's like you're just drowning in awesome folks, and I rarely meet bad apples, man. It's like I'm meeting people because they're friends of friends, and like you've interviewed Tim a few times and you were dying to get him out here. And so even though it's the first time you met him, you guys were still connected. And it's like good people just keep finding good people. And this weekend just really reaffirmed that for me. And that's why I've been able to be in the sport for 20 years, because of all the great people in it. That was long-winded enough, wasn't it?
Awesome. Perfect.
Yeah, so this weekend for me has just been, I guess, an excellent time for me to kind of refocus myself on instruction. I've been fortunate enough to kind of have a break from running a school. I do teach classes multiple times a week, but it's not my like school, so I don't have all of the burden of making sure that everybody's coming in paying the bills. I just walk in, teach class, walk out, and I think I might have grown a little bit complacent in my teaching, and so I got fired up to come out to see you guys. Byron and I have done several interviews together, and I think the world of the BjjBrick podcast. And then when I heard that when Jake told me that he was trying to get Roli on board, I was like, this is going to be great. I had very, very high expectations, which is usually a dangerous thing, but my expectations were exceeded. Meeting Roli, learning from Roli, the stuff that he showed at this in his workshop, his seminar, immediately I was able to put it into practice. I've been using it this weekend when I train, gi and no gi, and it's an area where I'm a white belt. One of the things that Roli just mentioned was sort of the relational aspect of jiu-jitsu, and one of the things I love about it is just like in every relationship sort of paradigm that you have in life, whether it's work or school or jiu-jitsu, if you think you know everything, you're going to be sadly disappointed when you find out how much you didn't know and it's too late to fix it. And jiu-jitsu is a daily reminder, if you're doing it right, that you got a lot more to learn. And I've done a straight ankle lock since 1998. The only time I started doing it right was today, because the details he showed, the methods of entry, it's exactly what I needed. I'm a white belt at foot locks. I'm a white belt at straight ankle locks, and so I've got room to grow there. And I couldn't find a better environment than this weekend, because there were people from all sorts of different flags and geographies that came together. And everybody was just really friendly and welcoming, and hard rolls. Like I had some really fun and challenging rolls, and it was a blast.
One thing that really stood out to me is just watching you two interact. From an outsider's point of view, I look at you two as role models for me. Somebody who, I think is head and tails above the rest of us, and somebody that I want to get to your level. I want to emulate you guys. But what really surprised me is, first of all, I don't think you guys knew each other before you came in here. But I just loved how you guys were so into each other's seminar. Like you were just talking right now, Tim, about, how much you learned from Roli. And I know Roli was the same way. And it just makes me realize, and you just mentioned it again, Tim, there, but even at your levels, you guys never stop learning. You guys are going to pick each other's brains. Like the rest of us all went out to eat. These two stayed and just trained with each other. They're just picking brains. They're just putting more tools in their tool bags, as Joe likes to say. But that's what really impressed me, and that's something that I think is what's made you guys so high level. You guys are always open to learning from anybody, and like Roli says, people aren't bad apples. You're meeting great people and just picking their brains and learning from them.
Well, listen, it's like this. I mean, in just about any other sport or hobby that you could get in, to be able to be in the same arena with somebody who's competed at the level that Roli has competed, who's trained guys, who's a coach of the level that Roli is, you would pay thousands of bucks for that opportunity if it was even available. Like my Professor Andre Galval, he's like the Michael Jordan if you go back to the 90s basketball, and you can't shoot one-on-one with Michael Jordan without. You can't go play golf with Tiger Woods or whoever's big at golf. You just can't do it, right? You can't throw passes, catch with Peyton Manning. But the beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu is, I know of Roli for a long time. I mean, I was at a tournament, I want to say it was 2005, and I watched him compete, and I was just like, man, that guy's really good, really tough. And so, yeah, when I get to have contact with him, I get to be on the mat with him, I'm going to be a sponge to him. I've got so much to learn from him. And then to get rolled up by him as many times as I can in a weekend is bonus.
Yeah, and Well, like the thing that I look for because I have a really short attention span, is clear, concise instruction. And so, like, he obviously, Tim knows his material really well. And so, like, he just was able to cover a lot of, like, really important principles. And then he tied them all to submissions in his seminar. So he covered a lot of ground in a short period of time. And so today we got to train together. And I was able to, like, steal a little private lesson from him on the leg drags. Because that's the guard passing is a system. And you're using, you never... It works best together, like punches, right? Punches and bunches. And so, you're doing a lot of movements with passing the guard. And the leg drag is the weakest part of my passing sequences. And so, like, I just asked him some questions, and it was just like just clear, concise. It's like there's no debate. There's no, like, talking your way through it. He just like, yeah, this is it right here. I do it like this. All mechanically, structurally sound. So, like, in like 20 minutes of just like doing leg drag work, that's with like the average jiu-jitsu coach, it would take me an hour and a half to get there. But just somebody just like delivers the information. So yeah, that was the opportunity today. It was like once everybody went to eat lunch, I knew that was my time to really pick his brain and get better, and develop that side. Like, that's what's going to help me is like there was a couple things on the leg drag that I was just missing. There's no other way to say it. Like, I think I know it, but like you're swinging a wiffle ball bat or you're hitting in the big leagues. Like, yeah, you're swinging a bat. Like, yeah, you're dragging the legs sort of, but now I have like some clear, concise things to work on structurally. And the way that I'm going to get better at it is I'm going to teach it to my guys. That's how I drill is I teach. And then, so yeah, like it's awesome. It was perfect. So the weekend was just super cool. I can't believe like I was on the fence about doing it, and now I'm like I hope, like, dude, I'd love if they just brought us both back and you guys did the same exact camp and we just did different content. Like it would be so cool. It was just a great weekend. So,
man, that's cool that you guys both enjoyed the weekend as well. It feels like a lot of times when somebody does a seminar, they come out, they teach. And thank you for the business, and they're off. But you could tell just the connection between you guys, and the connection between you guys and the people taking the seminar was really positive. And I think that's the important thing. Now, we do have a quote of the week. It's we're talking to Kevan Jr.
I'm Kevin. Ever since I was 6 years old, my father always told me, if you can't find a good person in this world, be one.
And it's an interesting quote. And I think about like a small town, and it has one gym, one jiu-jitsu gym, and that's it. You go in there, and it was kind of rough. It wasn't really the thing you were looking for, but you really wanted to do jiu-jitsu. Well, the next person that comes in that's like you is going to have the same exact experience, unless you're there representing that side of jiu-jitsu for that person. And so, you could turn and be the person who's not that friendly and kind of abrasive and in it for themselves, or you could be the person at that gym that kind of stands alone and is helping everybody and being a super friendly, having a good time, that attitude for the next person that comes in the gym. And it'll help the whole gym. But, that quote's not meant for jiu-jitsu, but it does translate. If the gym that you're at, if there's a little bit of an issue with the way people are treating each other, it starts with you. And own that, and I think it'll help the gym.
That's great advice.
Roli was talking about don't meet a lot of bad apples here in this sport. And, I start thinking about that. It's if everybody just became that nice person, we're going to have less bad apples. Our goal is to grow jiu-jitsu, and we need to be welcoming, friendly, treat everybody with respect and courtesy that walks in that door. A lot of these people here at this summer camp this weekend, I did not know. I didn't know Tim. I've met Roli before, but I feel like I've made probably 15 new friends that, I've even talked about Tim, that, when I go back out east, maybe I can stop through and train at his academy. So I've met so many great people. It's going to open a lot of doors, and we just treat each other with respect and courtesy.
Yeah, it also, to speak on that, obviously it starts with the leadership, and you don't necessarily have a lot of control of that, and so you can control yourself, and what you're saying is correct. But I think a good way of looking at things too is if somebody seems standoffish or they're not great to be around, whatever it is, it's always good to have some empathy, because in my experience, most of the closed doors, bridge burning, just when I have met somebody who didn't have a personality that I could really vibe with, and this isn't to like throw stones. I'm not thinking of anybody in particular. It's not to throw stones or anything, but most of that comes from insecurity. And maybe the business owner that's nervous. And I can tell you, like as a black belt, there's plenty of times that I'm insecure about my skill level. I mean, that's the truth. That is 100% transparent. There are times that I don't feel like I'm as good as I need to be. And luckily, I deal with that in a productive way. And if it's unfortunately, some people deal with that by building walls. And so if you have somebody that's doing that, and that's not to say, oh, you're only doing that because you're insecure, but it just gives you some empathy to look at that person and go, oh, man, they don't realize they're being necessarily like a not awesome person. They're just doing what they think is in their best interest, and they may be financially like in a tight spot, and they're just nervous they're going to lose students if everybody cross trains with them or their students go hit this open mat. And so like you can actually have some sympathy and empathy for those people. And if you look at it that way, I think you can find a way in for those people, maybe a personal invite to something like, hey man, like we haven't hit it off and hung out, and you're like 30 miles from me. This is weird. Like, dude, let's go grab drinks and watch a stupid movie. And if they don't take you up on it, so be it, but that's going to lead to hey, like, let's work out, like, keep the students out of here. And I just think there's ways to build bridges if you really want to build a community, and you won't be able to bring everybody in.
And you won't be able to do it overnight. Something to keep in mind with this is cultures don't change quickly. So if you, like Byron said, you join a gym and it's not the vibe you're looking for and you want it to improve, it's going to be a long process, and you just got to work at it daily.
I feel like, I have the largest gym in Arkansas, and that's like saying you have the tallest building in Topeka, Kansas, right? Like, was that 4 stories, but I feel like maybe like some people don't hit my open mats and stuff, and maybe it's they're not outright told not to, but it's discouraged. I get it, like if you're from a smaller gym, like you wouldn't necessarily want to take your guys and like send them to an open mat to a gym that's in the same neighborhood as you. Like, I don't fault anybody for that. That's totally reasonable. When I was getting started, like, man, I had such an ego, and there was times like if somebody else said like, oh, we're the best at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I took it personally. Now I look at everybody's website and everybody claims to be the best, and I don't take it personally. I'm above that, But like, I think a lot of times like that perspective really comes with just some honesty about like where you've been, because I've been there. I've been like not necessarily like being rude to people or anything, but like you're a little closed off, but it's based on some sort of self-preservating need. And if we see it for what it really is, I think we can really get through to people. And once people feel comfortable and let their guard down, I think that's when like real relationships can build. And that's what we're looking for in jiu-jitsu, is to better ourselves. I talk about this with my students all the time, and I think that's the trick to keeping people engaged in jiu-jitsu is to somehow, I talked a little bit about the mental game in my seminar, but somehow use jiu-jitsu as a platform to make your life better. And if that's like, I don't want to compete, well, why don't you want to compete? Well, and then it turns out that you're just really nervous, you're going to let all your teammates down. Well, that's not a good reason. Like, if you're not willing to face that here, that's going to manifest itself in other areas. And if you're able to use jiu-jitsu to overcome those things, it will pay dividends outside, off the mat. And I think that's the trick for what we're doing. Hey, we're all getting older. I mean, look at this table, right? Nobody's competing at adult worlds.
You guys making fun of my age again?
You're a good-looking 50, though, man, right? You're rocking it, training hard, in shape. I hope that I'm, at 50 is 14 years from now, man. I hope that my body's still holding up, and starting jiu-jitsu later than me.
As I'm walking around with a limp today.
Yeah, right.
I've been out all weekend.
Yeah,
been able to train.
I know. I got 20-year-olds that are out with injuries, too. I just think that's what it is. That's what living is. Living is suffering.
Here's one of the things I think is really important because we're talking about bad apples or the lack of bad apples in the sport and how to build. Roli just did a great conversation on how to build relationships between gyms and things like that. One of the things I think is, number one, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is, according to I think who was it, Joe Rogan said, it's a great douchebag filter. But I think there's another level that leadership within a gym needs to have their eyeballs on that. For me, it's big. I am first and foremost a leader in every gym that I walk into, whether I'm assigned that role or not. When I came in this weekend, there was a certain way I was going to hold myself, so that everybody, got the most out of the experience in a safe manner, but in a manner that was, as organized and that I could help as possible. When I'm at home, if somebody new comes in, the first person they have contact with is going to be with me, and I get to launch sort of what the culture is. And with female students in the gym, I'm maybe this is a little chauvinistic, but I keep my eye out on them, making sure that they're being rolled with well, fairly, with the right guys that have the right motivations. If they're getting treated brutally and it's not deserved and not called for, then I get to have the next role. I get to be involved in that, and I act as a filtration system. If I have a young guy or an old guy, either spectrum. I got a 14-year-old that comes in to train, or I've got a 62-year-old that comes in to train. I'm going to protect those guys. I'm going to watch out for them, because the culture in my gyms needs to be one of we're all family. So these are brothers and sisters, or these are elders when we're in front of each other, and we're here to improve ourselves in some way, shape, or form. So instructors, I think, have an obligation to keep an eye on who's around and what their vibe is. And then I think you get to assign what level of any one of those vibes you want. If you're in a gym where swearing's not allowed, that's your prerogative. A lot of gyms will allow for that, and that's cool too. But if it's your prerogative that isn't allowed, then you can't be willy-nilly with it. You got to say that's a rule here. And the guy down the street who I know really well, maybe he allows for that, Or if going knee in the eye socket is looked down upon in your gym. If you're not allowed to do certain techniques, you need to make those rules known. You need to have a filtration system up on the front end, and everybody just needs to have the right expectation. I feel people get most hurt by discipline within a gym because they don't know the rules, or they don't see the rules being applied fairly. And so I'm just real clear on my communication. Number one, by example. Number two, by this is what it is. If we're wearing the kimono and we're training, you're not going to attack a heel hook in my gym when you walk through my doors. Those are known, and I've gotten grief from visiting people about that. And I'm just like, I'm going to protect my students. People from another school walk in, and I know that they are heavy on heel hooks and whatnot. I just say, hey, out of the gate, no heel hooks, especially on anybody below like a purple belt or a blue belt here, please. And that's just our rule for being there. So you set a filtration. You set the culture, like you said. You don't build it overnight, but the leadership gets to set the tone and then have sort of known and consistent discipline, and your culture will develop itself. One of the things Roli said is, I can't remember when he said it. Maybe it was yesterday or today. It's all kind of blending together for me. But he's the captain of his ship, right? And so he gets to steer his ship. But jiu-jitsu is an ocean, okay? And there's going to be shifts and waves. And he's steering his ship. But, the wave might be that guys in his school want to know, how to do some open guard stuff that he may not be versed in. He doesn't like fight the waves. He just steers the ship. He's got a student. He's mentioned his name that does this stuff really well. So he gives that assignment to that guy, and so he creates the culture. Because to use the same sort of analogy, the rising tide raises all ships. So if he holds back and says, brown belt, you can't speak in class. If he sets the culture where there's leader worship here. I'm the big dog, and you don't get to talk. Well, Roli's not going to get any better. It's going to slow down his progress because he needs his students, and I know because of what I've heard him talk about, he loves that he's got students that are always nipping at his heels and catching him regularly because he's training right. He's making himself vulnerable, and there's the culture. I think if you walk in and your head instructor has some sort of design in his program where you need to have this overwhelming awe of him, he's going to fail. That instructor's going to fail himself. He's going to fail the students, and the program's going to fizzle. I've seen it happen.
Real quick, did you say nipping at his heels because it's Roli?
That's a good pun. Yeah,
no pun intended on
he
that.
said nipping at my heels, then he said like catching. Because I was thinking like no, like I have like a squad of purple belts right now, and they they each have unique and brown belts as well, but like that. They each have like a unique thing that they give me fits with, and I get tapped out in my gym. And I always talk about that with people. Like they always say like, oh, well, if your students are beating you, you're a great instructor. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. There's some pride in that, but it also still bothers you as a grappler. Because the unfortunate thing about jiu-jitsu is the guy that's training under you is getting better much faster than you got better. Mm-hmm. So even though you've been doing it 20 years, you've filtered everything for them, and you've streamlined it for them, and you've basically taught them your jiu-jitsu. We all teach the things we're good at, and you should. It's the things you know really well. So like I get bested by my guys, and I was making a joke with some of you guys the other day, or Tim, I can't remember who all was in the conversation, but it's a compliment when my students beat me in a round, and I say we're going to run it back, because it's me saying like you got the best of me, and my ego needs another go at you. So it's like it's not like I'm going to make it weird and I'm going to try to punish you. I am obviously going to be going 100%, because it's hard training. You just beat me. But we're running it back, and then it's like, okay, and that develops that mental toughness. They see that in me. Like, I'm not going to like run from you. I'm going to run at you. And I think that's like a cool thing. And it's so much easier like that, to not put yourself on a pedestal and to be vulnerable and transparent, because if you don't put yourself on a podium, you don't have anything to fall from. And you're just right there with your guys, and that goes back to that ship deal. And I'm just what I said was I'm just steering the ship, man. Like we're all in this journey together. I'm far from being the end all be all of instruction, and so we're just doing it together. We're getting. But when I was training Hillary, man, I taught her almost everything I knew, and she was like a high level blue or purple by then. Like at the time, like. I was just teaching her everything I knew, and we grew together. And that was so cool. Like she would cross train everywhere. She'd come back. It's embarrassing to think about all the stuff I didn't know when we were coming up, but it worked. We grew together. And like till this day, she's my biggest pit bull. Like if you even like look at me crossways, like Hillary Williams would be down your throat. Like it's like a full frontal assault. Like she's a straight pit bull. But we grew together, and we're still growing together. The whole team. And obviously, I think that's the vibe what we're getting on this podcast is like we're having fun growing together, and sometimes like you got to eat some humble pie in the process. You don't get to be the man every day in jiu-jitsu.
Well, I've noticed Byron keeps telling me he wants to run it back because I've gotten so much better at podcasting than him.
I think Roli and Tim have us beat, though. This is probably the best discussion we've had on a simple quote.
Yeah.
So, awesome, guys.
Okay, to derail things a little bit, we do have a portion of the show that we like to bring in kind of an off-the-mat topic, and then we drag it back onto the mats and discuss it. And it typically involves kind of a story in one of our lives. And it was about a week and a half ago. I'm eating dinner at a small restaurant with my wife. And we get pizza, I put it on the table, we sit down, start eating, and we don't have napkins. No big deal. I get up and get napkins. I come back, and I sit down, and she's sitting at the booth side of the table, like the bar, and I have like a little tiny chair. And I grab the table, and I pull myself to the table to slide in. But really what I did was I moved the entire table 5 inches towards my lap. And that's away from her 5 inches. She looks at me like, what are you doing? Oh, sorry. And then I immediately push it back, but I push it back way too far. And now it's like on her lap. And she's right over there. I mean, she experienced this whole thing. I told her I was going to tell the story. And so now I pulled it too far towards me, pushed it way too far on top of her lap. And the whole time I want my chair to move, not the table. And so I pull it one more time back towards me, and it was, again, too far towards myself. At that like exact moment, she's holding a slice of pizza, and it drips sauce onto her lap, which should have landed on her plate. And we have a couple of, like any relationship, you have some like ongoing jokes that you kind of have going on. And one of mine is that I spill food on myself a lot. Because anytime I think I'm slightly above average, but I make a big deal out of it, and I make fun of myself when it happens. Oh, look, it happened again. I've got another chocolate stain or whatever. But when it hit her lap...
Byron, you sure that's chocolate?
It's on the front of his shirt, Gary. That's how he knows it's chocolate.
Gary's questioning if it's chocolate or not. But now I've managed to spill food on her lap that was in her hand, and it's my doing, which is hilarious.
Evolving.
It's hilarious, right? So, not that funny to her at the time, because she had a long day to wear those clothes. All this being said, to drag it back on the mats, she married me. That's who she has. She knows what she's getting. She knows that guy that's going to be fairly clumsy at dinner is going to spill some things. Not a surprise. Like, yeah, it happened to you now because of me. Same thing with jiu-jitsu. Like, if you've come in and your wrist is a little bit banged up or you've got a broken rib, look at your teammates, your classmates. You know what you're going to get from each one of them, if you know them well enough. And you can kind of say, today I'm going to roll with these 3 people, or today I'm going to avoid these people, because even if I tell them I'm damaged goods today, in a minute they're going to totally forget about that, and they're going to make me regret I got on the mats. And unfortunately, she married me, so she's stuck with me, and she's going to have spilled food on her occasionally, but she knows what she's getting when she goes out to dinner with me. She's giving me a look.
You're just lucky you live in a state where divorce is not allowed, apparently. I mean,
it's interesting to know what you're going to get. Like, the way that I think about that in terms of jiu-jitsu is like when you have an instructor or a coach, like you can't have everything. If you want a guy that's going to be there every day teaching classes, well, he's rarely going to be like an active world champion. Because if you want to go train with the active world champion, they're doing seminars every weekend, long weekends, they're hitting a ton of tournaments, they're on the road, everybody's pulling at them. You can't have that guy holding your hand every day. You're asking for 2 things that are very difficult to find. So you find a guy that's in the gym all the time, very good at jiu-jitsu, but obviously he's not out every weekend doing every major tournament and all these seminars and stuff. So my students, the joke is always, I'm sorry about the tips, guys. Like, somebody will go from having 1 tip to 4 tips and 2 months later being a blue belt. Because I'm not very structured and organized with my grading. Everything is like when it feels right for me, when I feel like that person needs to get the next rank. And so, there's a lot of benefits to training with me. I care about you. I'm pretty selfish that I want everybody to be good for my own ego. I love being a good coach, but that plays real well for my students because I'm vested in making them as good as they can possibly be. On the flip side, if you need a stripe every 4 months because you've been killing it and that's what drives you, what you're getting with me. I'm not going to be on the ball. I'm not going to be there on the 8th month with the 2nd stripe. It's just, that's just one of the areas, and we're, that I'm not good at. So what you're going to get. That's kind of what I was thinking with my analogy to jiu-jitsu. What's yours, Tim?
Well, so picking training partners is really tough in the white and blue belt phase, I think, because you don't know really what to expect and you don't know what's the right feel and the wrong feel. I know as a black belt now, I know how to pick my training partners. If there's days where I want to pick the lions in the room, because I want a hard roll. There's days when I want to go with somebody who's flexible and there's going to be a lot of playing going on. But at the same time, I think it's really important that the there be the freedom that, like Byron said, if you want to pick 3 people to roll, you should be allowed to roll with those 3 people. And I think coaches need to be able to push people out of their comfort zone. Because we all have our comfort zone. One of the things I say is that the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu mats, they're sort of sacred. Because before you step on the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu mat, out in the parking lot or in the changing room, you can claim to be whatever you want to claim to be. You can claim your belt is super legit. You can do anything you want. You can claim you're a fighter or a tournament champion or anything like that. But when you step on the mats, you slap hands, bump fists, the truth comes out. Right? You are what you really are. Another place that works the exact same way on the mats that I think makes them a sacred zone is that just about everybody who's training finds that they have something they're good at, and then they have areas that they're not so good at. I call those the shadows. And a lot of people avoid the shadows. They don't shine light into the shadows. And especially when it's time to train, they tend to want to roll in the light, go to people where they can play their game and avoid somebody who exposes their shadows. They can't escape the back. They can't escape cross-side bottom or whatever it may be. And I think a coach sometimes has to be able to say, hey, I noticed you haven't rolled with Mick in a long time. Why don't you go put a roll in with Mick? Oh, okay, good. But I think a good coach also then debriefs with them and says, all right, so I saw you pick these 2 people. I stuck you with Mick. Tell me about all of your rolls. What can you learn from this? Everybody who I rolled with this weekend, I asked them, what were your takeaways? What did you notice? What did you think about from our roll? Because I'm a big fan of being present in your and being purposeful in your training. We get a limited number of opportunities to smack hands and bump fists. Our lives are finite. We're only on these mats for a certain amount of time. You can have a lot of fun doing it, which is fantastic, but ultimately we should be, as Roli said, trying to improve ourselves. So we need to be present for each roll. Whether you're a black belt rolling with a white belt or a white belt rolling with a white belt, every roll you should say, this frustrated the expectation I had of this movement, or man, this was actually easier than what I expected it to be. Why? So I think studying is really important, and the more looks you get, the better off your jiu-jitsu is going to be. So if you only get a look of one training partner because that person's safe, they're never going to hurt you, your jiu-jitsu is basically limited to how it works against that one person. But there's 4 of you around this table right now, and all of you have different jiu-jitsu. All of you have a different game. All of you have a different skill set. And why would I want to deprive myself of experiencing any one of those, even if maybe one day it's me testing my jiu-jitsu against you, and maybe another day it's me letting you test your jiu-jitsu against my defenses. It just depends. But, I think being selective is important. The older I get, the more selective I am, as far as, especially on the first couple rolls when I'm cold. I tend to pick guys that I know are going to make safe movements with me. They're not people that are going to be like making fast, jerky, crazy movements. They're going to roll well. But once I'm warm, I like to roll with everybody.
I was going to say, we noticed that this weekend you guys rolled with everybody and anybody who wanted to, and we were talking about that at lunch. That's what made the seminar so great. We've all been to seminars before, but where there wasn't a lot of rolling, but you guys were out with everybody, and that was one of the big takeaways I got from everybody in attendance.
Tim rolled more than I did. I did roll with a lot of people. He was talking about how guilty he felt having to tell somebody no, and I had told one person no this weekend as well, and it was just the similar situation, the end of the training, and my body was, I haven't been training really hard lately, and I just felt like for my own benefit, it was best to just call it. And I never want to say no, because as Tim says, we're service providers. That's what we're doing. And then also it's the ego. Like I never want to tell somebody no. I want to give them that role. I'm not running from anybody. I'm running towards the tough people. I love the challenge. And anyways, it was great to roll with everybody. There's a lot of talented practitioners here. One of the ways we're talking about, like picking training partners, or maybe Tim was talking about somebody, may not roll with somebody because they're having trouble with them and they're avoiding them, and a good coach will step in and help. And it reminded me of some of the things that I do. I think about a lot of the guys that have been with me a long time, and they give me trouble. And there's a guy, Jacob Robinson. He has a really good hook sweep. He's like about the same height as me, and his hook sweep is just, some people just have that move, and his hook sweep is just amazing. And so I've broken that hook sweep down, and there's a ton of layers on how to deal with it. And the most important thing is, like, you try to get low on him with the hook sweep, you're getting swept because he reaches over your back and grabs your belt. So you have to pass his hook sweep standing. That's no easy feat. I get swept a lot by him, but that's the physical chess that one of my coaches used to always talk about. I mean, it's a challenge. I want to deal with his hook sweep. It's so good. I got another guy, Matt Ferris, extremely strong, talented grappler, and I can only give him hard rolls when I go after him like it's a tournament. If he's just way stronger than me, he's like an oil and water mix. Like, my game doesn't gel with him at all. So like, if I like slap myself in the face and like talk some trash to him and get him wound up and go after him, like, I can win the round. I can. I'm not saying I always will, but that's the only way. So like there's this. That's the only formula I found that worked for me. I can't slow play him. I've got to jump on him and not give him a chance. And there's no guarantee in that. But each person has a certain attribute that meshes against you poorly, and you got to take that. And instead of just going like, oh man, there's nothing I can do about it, or he's just better than me, it's like, no, there's I think Tim said, like, there's no magic, it's all leverage. And that's what it is. Like, there's a way to deal with this, there's a way to beat it. And oftentimes to figure out how to do it, because I can't always deduce the right answer. I'm just like, crap, it happened again. Like, it happened again. What's the answer? Oh, I kept getting an underhook on Tim. He chokes me with a guillotine. Like, well, maybe I shouldn't play so tight. Maybe I shouldn't put my head into his belly. Maybe I should play like more open guard or whatever. One of the things that I do is, I bring instructors into my school, but I'll bring my coach Pimenta, Denelson Pimenta, and I will watch him with my students, because they're gonna throw their A game on him too. And I train my guys. We go after each other. There's no hierarchy, and you're not scared about hurting feelings and stuff. And but I'll watch Pimenta beat these guys. And there's a way he's doing it. It's not just that he's physically so much stronger, he's moving them, but he's shutting down that game, and that's the blueprint. So there I am taking mental notes of, like, I see what he's doing. And, Pimenta passes the butterfly guard standing. He doesn't drop. He's never on his knees. So anyways, that I think that's the fun part, is those people that are giving you trouble. Because when you do figure out how to beat their A game, that's such a reward. You still have to deal with the rest of their game, but like, that's the chess. That's the challenge. I was talking to Tim about that. Like, that's the thing that I love. I love to be challenged. I love for my friends to challenge me, like, personally. I like to be challenged in business, to be better. And on the mat, like, those good guys, that's the opportunity.
All this kind of splintered off of a dripped pizza sauce onto my wife's lap. But yeah, it's interesting, all the points you bring up about, choosing your training partners as a positive thing, as a negative thing, helping coaches helping see that and deal with that, and not avoiding people's strong games as training partners, as that could be a huge mistake. Sure, it's fun to win the round, but if I could, if you could put me in a footlock and I could take apart the vice grip that's on my legs and get up, that's a huge, a lot of skill that I've had to develop, with your help to do that. Versus if I just try to avoid the whole thing altogether, and just the whole thing of it's not a individual thing. You're using your whole team as you get better at jiu-jitsu.
One of the things that I admire my coach about is he'll take everybody's got their thing. He will let them start with their grips, not to be arrogant, but if he can get kind of deep into the rabbit hole and get out of it, which he normally does, but like, then when he's in a match, if he gets out of position, like, he has seen that before. Like, oh, you play Berimbolo, he'll let, like, I got a purple belt with a really good Berimbolo and great grips, he'll let him have everything, and then he'll just shut it down. but instead of like passing his guard, mounting him and cross-choking him like he does everybody else, he'll pass his guard and then he'll get right back into his guard, and he'll let him get the grips, and he'll do that with me. He knows I'm shooting for one leg X, and he'll let me try, and he's just shutting it down. So, man, I have a real, I'm not really great at a lot of things at jiu-jitsu, but I'm really good at one leg X, and so he's training with, me, and that's the one area where I can help him, and he's utilizing it. He's not running from that position. He's using me as a drilling partner. I'm rolling, and he's drilling. And I think that's a really good way to roll with people that maybe aren't as good as you, is to let them get started into some good stuff, and then work out of it, and you can, that's just, what Tim was saying, being in the moment. That's like, you're not just going and having a roll. There's an objective. There's a clear objective that I'm trying to get the most out of my time, our finite time. And I think that's, I hope that people that are listening to this come away with, so, these conversations that, we're having, these are conversations based around 20 years apiece of experience. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're able to like get some insight that you can apply, even if you don't have much faith in our experiences. Like, you can apply this and get ahead of the curve and get so much more out of your journey and your time. You can get so much more out of your time.
Yeah, that training methodology is brilliant, Roli. There's not very many other sports where, I couldn't go up to an NBA player and we couldn't play one-on-one and he would get nothing out of it. But we're sitting here at a table with 3 black belts, and y'all could roll with blue belts, and you can get something out of it. They gain from the roll, you gain from the roll, everybody's better because of it. And I think that's unique to jiu-jitsu, and I love it.
Yeah. And full disclosure, I keep looking back because at some point I'm leaving for the airport, and I just, I don't want to be the guy holding everybody up. So if I just disappear off the podcast, I've got to catch my flight back to Little Rock, and the honeymoon's going to be over soon for me.
I do want to talk a little bit about your guys' seminars, and there's 2 seminars that were quite a bit different. Roli showed his leg lock system, or part of it anyway, and Tim talked about pressure from top side, but there was a large overall theme that I got that I don't always get with seminars, is that both you guys really cared about the students. I hate to say it, not all seminars are that way. Sometimes the guy shows up, collects a check, and signs, takes some pictures, and gets out of there. Doesn't even take pictures. Like, you guys wanted us to get the stuff right. You guys, wanted to take the time and work with us individually as you went around, and it really just that the feeling that you guys are here for the students. And that's what. And so they went on Saturday. Sunday was I taught some stuff, hard acts to follow. But I kept telling myself, I just want the students to get the best that I could give them, whatever that is today, with what I have in my ability. I want to be here, and I want to give them my best. And nobody complained. So, but that was a common theme, which I would be. Having such a big list of names to choose from to think about bringing in for this, like we found the 2 right guys, like guys that care about the students and have the knowledge to share.
Yeah, I think. Maybe it's I think I told the students yesterday that I've stood in front of rooms where I've taught the exact same workshop, and I've wanted praise from it. The reason that I wanted to do the best I could do is because I wanted people to think highly of my jiu-jitsu or my instructing ability, and I wanted to pad my ego and pad my self-worth with what people's opinions were of me. And I've had a big life transition, and I've got a new perspective. And yesterday, it wasn't about me. I'm going to give my best all the time. It's what are the motivations behind me giving my best. And to be the best instructor I can be, I needed to make sure that I organized that material, disseminated that material, and then checked and evaluated how everybody was absorbing the material so that everybody who came, who paid hard-earned money to be with me on the mats got the most value out of it that can possibly get, and value that continues to just to keep moving forward. And so I was, Roli and I have been having a lot of great conversations this weekend. One of them is on that we are service providers, and I really viewed that. My job this weekend wasn't, to come in and have anybody pat me on the back for how well I did, or how tough I may be, or of course I love to hear people say, "Oh, that was some great pressure," right? Especially when that's what I'm teaching. I wanted it to sell, but I wanted it to sell because I wanted people to say, "Yeah, the money that I spent on this camp was well worth it because I got to feel it, I got to see it, I got to learn it. The guy that was teaching it to me cared about me knowing it, and that way they maximize the benefit from it." I think anybody who comes in to teach a seminar and doesn't have the audience and their best interests in mind is just operating from a position of probably thinking they're worth more than what they are, because not only is our time on the mat finite, our marketability of ourselves is finite. I mean, you look at who were the top names in the late 90s, early 2000s for jiu-jitsu seminars in the United States. Roli and I we could name these people who everybody would go do a seminar with right now. Those guys can't book seminars today.
Yeah, it's true.
So so I would rather build relationships that are meaningful, and come share as much as I can share while I can share it, and have somebody go into class later. Maybe it's somebody who travels out of class and they grab a white belt, and the white belt says, "Oh man, I can't breathe," and the person remembers me and says, "I learned that from Tim." Long after I'm off the mat, if something like that, that's where everlasting jiu-jitsu life comes from, is what ripple effect did I cause. So,
was it you, Tim, that said, or did I read that somewhere else? Oh no, I read it somewhere else. Black belt Elliot Marshall posted on Facebook or Instagram, probably both. It was a quote he reposted, but we die 2 deaths: the day we die, and then the day the last person we touched died. And I was like, it's just the more you learn about life, the simpler it gets. Like the everything echoes from something else, and the things that I do in business. I'm reading a real estate book right now, and it's like the whole first part of it. I'm like, geez, I think it's talking about jiu-jitsu. I think it's talking about that. And but truth is truth. Human nature is human nature, and our value systems are our value systems. And Tim nailed it. We're just trying to create meaningful relationships. That's what. Some people think I've had some success in, martial arts, and I don't see it the same way. I always look at what I didn't do, not some of the things that I did have an opportunity to do. And so when I do look back, and I have some pictures from doing Bellator or the UFC. Well, I don't look back at those. I never look back at them. What I think about is, I met Nathan Leverton, the coach of the guy who knocked me out in England, and became really good friends with him and learned some great things from him, and I think about, I ended up doing a seminar because I fought in the UFC in Connecticut, and I met some really great people up there that I'm still close to. That's what I remember, and that's not just some feel-good crap for the podcast. That's legit, that's what I value. There's people that I can, Tim was saying, we can go anywhere in the country, Tim and I, and we're going to have a couch to surf on and a mat to, if we need to make some money, we can go make some money. If we want to just teach a class, we can go teach a class. If we need someone to show us where all the high-happening spots of that city are, someone will be happy to do so. And I've had those experiences all over the world. And that's the value. That's the game right there. I'm not back here for leg locks. You guys have dozens of people that you could bring in for leg locks. I'm back here because we've created relationships. That's, so it's almost self-serving. Be a good person, build good relationships, and the rest will take care of itself. I guess that's all I need to say about it. But that for me, I can tell you, I don't look back and look at old medals, and I don't have a lot of old medals. Or go back and look at any of these milestones. People think, it's so cool you fought in the UFC. For me, it was I was fortunate. I was lucky. I was in the right place at the right time. There were plenty of people out there more deserving than me. and the win I get in the UFC, well, a lot of that has to do with the matchup. It's luck, man. Like, so much of it's out of our control. So I don't hold on to that stuff, but I think about all the people I met, and then I can't talk my way out of that. No, I met that person. I really like them. They seem to really like me. We enjoy each other's company. That's the true value system,
So Byron gave us some show notes here, and typically in the podcast he emails them to us, and we've got some topics to discuss. And on the show notes, it's stuff from Tim and stuff from Roli, who just fell off his chair. We have.
It's not a chair, really.
Wait, no, that was a guard pull, Joe.
Okay, well, we haven't provided very good seating for our guests, and they're doing the best with it. So I'll go first, and I'll just give a couple of thoughts on both guys. First off, Tim, I want to say that I thought the first 10 or 15 minutes that you brought were worth the seminar. Tim came and he talked about how to get the most out of seminars, the value of taking notes, the value of coming prepared, and he's talked on this podcast about being a service provider. And you got that feeling right away that he was there to make sure we got the most out of it. And I really appreciate that. As far as the techniques go, I really like that you had pressure and then a submission that resulted from their reaction. And that's just really good jiu-jitsu, and I really appreciate that. Roli, one of the things I really appreciated about what he brought was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because this is more of an impression I got than things that you actually said, but there's a lot of fine details to finishing a footlock, and you need to learn those and perfect them. But you need to first learn how to isolate the leg, how to put the leg in a compromising position, and so the learning process really should be started from that end and moving towards the finish. And I really appreciated that, and I appreciated. I'll just go back to what we talked about at the beginning of watching you guys interact. Byron, Jake, Fox, we had black belts on the mats during this, and egos don't always just automatically go away when you hit brown or black belt. But in this case, there were no egos on the mat. There were insightful questions that you guys asked each other, comments during the seminars, and I appreciated that more than you guys can ever know.
Man, you appreciate it. We appreciated it. It's just what it is, man. It's why not everybody stays in the sport for a long time, but that's what it is. I think we're. Tim's an attorney by trade, and And I myself, I have a lot of other opportunities. Like, it's a choice to do jiu-jitsu. We're not stuck in this is just what we do. This is the only way that I can make a living. Well, I can make a living 100 different ways, but I choose to do this because I love jiu-jitsu, and I love the community that I get from it. I love being around my students, and I love doing things like this and meeting great people. So I know I can speak for Tim as well. We appreciate you complimenting us on that, but that's. He's asking. We're asking each other insightful questions because we want to know, we want to understand.
Yeah, it was very obvious. You guys were as eager to learn as you guys were to bring information to us. It was a beautiful thing to watch. Gary, what'd you think?
Well, first of all, it was incredible. But I'll start with Tim. I'm kind of with Joe there. What I really liked is your talk right off the bat. Really just got us motivated. But I love, you can see that you really did care. He actually put together a bullet points timeline of what we were going to go through. And after it was done, I've wrote that, the whole thing's just filled with my notes. I'm not going to forget it because he provided a piece of paper with a timeline. That just shows how much you really cared. The other thing you did, Tim, I've never had this done before, is after we were done and we were eating dinner right over here, you actually asked me what I got out of it. What maybe could have you done better? I've never had that done before to me. That really impressed me. And like I told you, it's a lot of little things that I'm not a big pressure guy. I play loose. But that is the weakness of my game. And, little things like, active toes is something I'm going to have to work on. And just your 4 bullet points of creating pressure, flaring the elbows and flat back. Those are things that I'm going to use. It's going to go through my head. It's going to turn my game around. So I really appreciate all that. Roli, my third seminar with you. The one thing, it makes me feel special. The minute I walk in, Roli comes over and says hi to me. Like I said, you guys are superstars to me, guys I look up to. Who am I that you're going to remember me? But you just talked all about that. You care more about relationships. But this is my third leg lock seminar I've been with Roli. And somebody could say to me, hey, why are you doing this leg lock seminar? Not only have I done 3 leg lock seminars, I have his app. Why are you, what else can you learn? Like you said right off the bat, Roli, your game's always evolving. You're always getting better. I have never seen the slap the knee to catch, the back of the toes. I have never seen that before. And just that was one thing I always had trouble with, is getting in the right spot to get the toes. And that little just slap and then catch
such a great detail.
Made a big difference in the world. And what you guys just were talking about, that you guys are service providers, you're spot on. You guys really care. It showed. I don't even care about what I learned this weekend. I care about, I think I met 2 great people. What I learned this weekend is going to make me that much better. But it all comes down to, I met 2 good people. And, even if I learned nothing, I could care less, because I had a great time. But I learned a lot. My game is going to get better. And thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you. Dang, I'm going to go home feeling good.
I know, right? I'm going to have to dip out now, guys. I'm having a ton of fun. I actually really enjoy doing podcasts because I'm an extrovert, so I get fuel from being around people. It just brings me up, and I admire introverts that are can go be alone and read a book, because there's a lot of that I need to be doing. And but yeah, anyways, to say that I hate that I have to leave, because I'm having so much fun chatting it up. I just want to make one point. You were talking about the detail that you hadn't seen. One of the problems that we have in society right now is everybody knows a little bit about everything, and they really don't know crap about anything. There's no depth. And so in jiu-jitsu, I don't like the collegial approach of just knowing a little bit about everything. I think you should find an area of the game that comes natural to you, and then find the resources to support that, and then grow from there. That's my opinion on how to learn jiu-jitsu. If you're liking ankle locks, then you need to go down that rabbit hole, and you need some frequency. You don't need to go work with somebody. If you like my system, you don't need to go play double outside, ashi. That's because you're going to go do that, and then you're not going to get any depth in any one. Your feet are going to be confused. I don't know. Do I tuck them in? Do I tuck them out? Do I read? But you don't know what to do. I spend a lot of time bringing the same people into my gyms because I like their principles and their fundamentals, and I want that frequency. So you obviously got some stuff out of the seminar. It is continuing to evolve. But even if it was the same exact seminar, but it was me in person, I think that type of learning is really, really important. And I think we need more depth of knowledge. And that's why, I know how to do a leg drag, more or less. But I ask specific questions about the leg drag because I need a deeper knowledge of the leg drag. I'm not very comfortable teaching the leg drag because so what happens is you teach the move. Yeah, I know the move. And then there's a follow-up question. And I like to know the answer to what I teach, but you need to know the movements pretty well. And of course, with experience, if somebody presents a question, you can with deductive reasoning figure out a pretty good answer. But I want to know a simple move like a leg drag better. And so that's why I was asking the questions to learn it. Anyways, I've got to run. And thank you so much, Tim. Obviously, had a great time with you this weekend, man.
A blessing.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And the rest of you guys, thanks so much. It was an honor to be here. I really enjoy being on the podcast. I pitched one of my students to be on the podcast as well. I thought he had kind of a unique position that a lot of people could relate to. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. And yeah, you guys have a great day.
Thanks,
right.
Roli.
Thank you, Roli.
We'll see you, man.
Great time training with you, Roli. Safe travel. Okay. We'll be in touch.
Okay, brother. Thank you.
Gary.
Sir, appreciate it. Thanks so much, Roli. Good to meet you.
Great seeing you, brother.
So now that Roli's gone, I liked, and he can't talk about it anymore, but he talked, of course, his detail and explanation of leg locks is amazing, and it's taken me a few times to pick it up. I think I'm getting more confidence. I need to just train it when I get home, or when, a week later. But he talked about dealing with a loss. He talked to us about several losses that he had, but he talked about doing a tournament and losing, and then how he went back and said, how could I do this differently? This guy had a real flexible leg. How am I going to address that? And you hear the thing. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. But most people don't actually practice that. Mm-hmm. He went home and he changed what he was doing in order to better his jiu-jitsu. I thought that was really neat, just the conversation. And Tim, the detail was good. The pressure was really interesting to learn. I think the pressure was different than most of the pressure I had thought or I had experienced before. The lock and key, I found that particularly interesting. Having felt it from you as you demoed it, I was like, well, that's different, because I'm used to the squeeze the ribs and push down on the ribs, and really you're getting underneath the ribs at that point. And I thought that was probably the most making me think about pressure differently portion of what you taught. And then, I think Gary mentioned it a few minutes ago, you ask a lot of people, hey, let me know what you thought. I'd like to hear if you have anything that I could improve upon. Mm-hmm. And that's what we do in jiu-jitsu, except for you get tapped. That you can improve upon that because you got tapped by that. And I was like, I can't think of anything, but that's like a generic response that people give. Not to give you that feedback on the podcast now, but I was thinking, well, what could he have done differently? What really? And
I welcome it.
And you did. You walked around the room. You talked to a lot of people. You helped everybody. But being the person who was getting the technique demonstrated on him, I got a different experience than other people. Mm-hmm. And with the lock and key example of really, his ribs are going underneath my ribs and pushing on my lungs is what it feels like. And I don't know how many of the people who partner off get that experience, because they're just kind of working on it. But when you did that, it was almost like you took the blade of your hand and you just stuck it underneath my ribs. Like, whoa, that's different. And I think the more students that you get to feel that, and it's not scary. It's not like he's going to break my ribs pressure. It's like, well, that's different. And I think the more people that you get to actually feel that from you, I think that would make them say, oh, I don't quite have the pressure right.
Right.
Because it is different.
Right.
And it's hard to do. It's not a thing that you slide it, you get that pressure pretty much like it's been doing it for years, because you have. But for two people to pair off and to figure out how to do that, that's kind of tricky.
Sure.
And it was, as long as I've been doing jiu-jitsu, I've never experienced that not necessarily degree of pressure, but that angle or that type of pressure was different than what I've experienced.
Great
which was
feedback.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll note that. Make
Smash
sure
more students, basically.
Yeah. No, and I think there's a huge value to that. And it's duly noted, because that is something where you can put a lot of pressure on somebody and not have the exact pressure that I'm trying to sell. And so you need to feel what I'm trying to sell. And I think that's great feedback, because I do try to circle around. I do try to go around and make sure people are doing it well, and I'm asking them a lot of questions. But that's great feedback. I welcome it.
Great instruction, and I look forward to adding pressure to my game, even more so. I do, like Gary does play a game where he'll pass and he's trying to catch the arm. He's trying to, and he does a very good job of that. But I pass and I want to stay there for a little while and deprive them of some oxygen, as you say, and work on that a bit. And
well, actually, I play a different game. But one thing you were talking about is you deprive people oxygen, they're going to make mistakes. You talked about how we keep people from breathing, and you went over that, and that was one thing that was making me think, I really have to work on this. It'll make me that much better. Just your explanation of breathing and how you're going to constrict my breathing. I've never really had anybody really go into that. I always would say, hey, he's constricting my breathing because he's smashing me. But you made some good points. When I'm on the side, even if I smash in the front, I can breathe out the back, so I need to flatten you out. You can't expand your lungs. And, I just never really heard it explained like that, and it made great sense to me.
Roli mentioned it a little bit ago. I have a really common saying that I say a lot, that jiu-jitsu is mechanics, not magic. And he's taken that into sort of how he problem solves. And the other thing I always try to do is how to make the moves more efficient, how to make the moves cleaner. Is all just about understanding the mechanics of the move and moves and pressure. You take those 4 principles that I talked about. You can apply those across the spectrum, in any combination that you want. And the whole goal is, just as you said, is to try to drive somebody into oxygen depletion while you're in surplus. And pressure is just a great way to do that.
So, we do a lot of things in this show that are not just straight up jiu-jitsu. I like to have fun.
Yeah, most of the time they're playing jokes on me, Tim.
That being said,
it happens every time. You probably already planned one.
Have you enjoyed the weekend free of getting jokes played on you?
So this basically means they've been playing a joke on me all weekend, and I'm just finally figuring it out. They're going to tell us about it, and I have no clue. And as usual, let's pick on the old guy. Bunch of bullies.
It is a bit of picking on the old guy. I want to thank our Patreon supporters for helping support the podcast. Our newest Patreon supporters are Trip and Caleb, and I want to give a special shout out to Mindy, who was in attendance at the seminar. That was awesome to train with Mindy.
It was great to meet you, Mindy. Thank you so much for coming.
And another shout out to Adrian, who donated some money to us on Patreon or on through PayPal. So thank you guys. Now, if you're thinking about helping us out on Patreon, we'll send you out a 5-inch BjjBrick gi patch. We'll send you out a sticker as like tokens of appreciation, because what you largely do is donate like $1 per episode, and it really helps us keep going and helps the show build to a bigger and better show that we can produce. Now, past Patreon supporters have really saved the show at sometimes, but future ones are going to get a special treat, because
I'm getting a little nervous, Tim.
Gary was nice enough to do a little modeling for us, and we've got these beautiful pictures. Oh man, that's nice.
They're going to be getting an autograph picture.
What do you think, Gary?
Of Gary.
Glamour shots, baby.
Boy, that's a good looking 51-year-old there.
And even one of them has him in a gi. So what Gary's going to do...
Whoa.
Oh, you even got me in a gi.
Dang. Start signing them, brother.
So we're going to have Gary sign these pictures, and he's a good sport, so he'll do it. So the next several Patreon supporters will... it's super cheap to mail things. That's the thing. As long as it fits in the envelope, like a gi patch or like a sticker, it's good to go. If we gave away T-shirts, it would be a lot bigger deal. I have to go to the post office and figure out postage and all that sort of thing. But I can slip a picture that Gary has autographed into any envelope and send it anywhere around the world. It's going to go to our Patreon supporters.
I think you could mail this just like a postcard, and we'd have a lot more inadvertent eyes on this.
I think if you mailed that as a postcard, I think it would never make its destination.
Somebody would steal that.
Steal it.
Yeah, I don't know if it would pass the federal porn statutes. Those are hot.
So we'll put a link. We'll put a couple of these. We'll put some pictures of these autographed pictures of Gary, and just so to entice you to join Patreon.
I'm going to start my own podcast where nobody makes fun of me.
Well, we can never.
Hey, this was good though. You guys, this might be one of your better ones. This was good.
Well, I'm glad you appreciate it, Gary.
Because there's probably another one.
We got to get you signing some stuff, so that's good. He's putting more than just his name on there, so you guys could enjoy the whole
personal. I
don't know. He wrote a lot of stuff.
Talking with Tim, I take this. I'm a service provider.
There you
Taking
go.
this serious, not like you guys.
That's true. I'm not autographing anything.
I'm wearing a tie right now.
Where?
Man.
Now you guys got Tim in on this.
Yep. He's an assassin. Want to let you guys know about next week and a couple weeks in advance. Next week we'll have... I think I have to switch. No, next week we'll have Brian Freeman. He's been on the show a couple times. He came to Wichita. Brian has a spinal cord injury. He's paralyzed. His legs are paralyzed. And I got to roll with him and train with him and took him over to my house, and we did an interview. And so look for that next week. The week after that, Joe did an interview with Seth Daniels.
Yeah, that was a great interview. If you're not familiar with Seth Daniels, he's the CEO of Fight to Win Pro. It was a really great interview. If you're worried it's a 50-minute promotion for Seth's business there, it's not. He's been doing martial arts since he was 3 years old. He's got a black belt in judo and a black belt in BJJ, and so tune in and catch that one for sure.
Yep, and then the week after that, it'll be episode 253. We have the interview with Rafael Lovato Sr.
I can't wait to catch that one. He's an unknown or a little-known legend, one of the old-school American jiu-jitsu practitioners who put in the miles with this little boy who turned into an American black belt, just phenom. And so I can't wait to hear what you guys talk about because I'm ready to learn from him.
Yeah, that was one of those interviews when I got done. I texted my wife. I had an amazing interview. I was really excited, and at the end of the interview, I said, hey, we got to get you back on. And he said that he enjoyed the experience, and we'll be happy to come on again. So hopefully he'll be a regular, I said we'll get you on in about a year or so, and that's kind of what we do with a lot of our repeat guests. We let a little time pass, but he could share his knowledge for days on the podcast. But anyway, this has been a fun episode 250 in the books. We recorded it together. There was five amigos this time.
The four amigos, because it seems like you guys don't like me.
But anyway, stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Train hard, train smart, get better. We'll see you on the mats, guys.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.